And session is recording. Okay, so now we're good to go. So today I'm here sitting with Saida. Saida will jump in here and there, especially when you guys have questions. So one of the first things I want to say and make sure you understand, and you did this as well with the WebEx session on write-off, that you wrote the questions, or that you actually write the questions in the Q&A section in the WebEx and not in the chat. Okay, for those of you who forget and still write it in the chat, we'll just remind you to put it in the Q&A, and we do that so that everybody can see the question. And also we can probably address it later on, as well as also compile the list of questions that may come out of this WebEx session and make a list of Q&A or frequently asked questions for physical verification, and also hand it back to you so you have that extra information. So if you do write it in the Q&A, it'll benefit all of us. So you guys should have all received this PowerPoint presentation I have on screen. So every day that we go through the WebEx sessions, you'll receive a different PowerPoint presentation.
Ryan?
You should have also, yes, Sega?
We can't see your screen.
Okay, thank you. Let me get that. And here we go. Now you should all be able to. Okay, thanks, Sega.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. So here you go. Yes, this PowerPoint presentation, as well as the credentials list, I'm also putting on the screen now, with your equipment, and also here to the right, the attendee first name and last name. So this should be the username that you use. Okay, I'm seeing in the chat people saying that they haven't received any emails. So I'll make sure, if you haven't received any of these documents that I'm sharing now on the screen, let me know in an email and I'll send it back to you. But this credential Excel that I have here will be necessary to log into the training environment and practice the exercises, or the one exercise that we have for these WebEx series. It's an exercise that just keeps growing. So whatever you do the first day will be useful for the WebEx Session 2 and WebEx Session 3 at the end. It shouldn't take you more than 5 to 10 minutes to do the exercises. So I recommend you do them as soon as the WebEx is over. I will go through the training environment as well with my own credentials to show you what I would like you to do for the exercise, and at the same time also explain what we want to cover under physical verification. So again, we have you should have this credential Excel in your inbox, as well as this presentation here, physical verification, WebEx Session 1, and also an exercise, which I'm going to share now on screen, which is this one here, the physical verification WebEx series for the training environment, where we tell you what you'll need to know to get the exercise going, and to also log into the training environment, and the step-by-step with the T-codes needed for the session today. And the deliverables here at the bottom is the most important. If you do have this document, you see at the end it says exercise deliverable session 1. All we're asking you to provide is the Excel, the physical verification template, populated with the equipment list report and last equipment discrepancy list. So I'm going to do that exactly today. That's going to be the main focus of this session, is to pull these reports to show you how to select the proper layouts and navigate through the training environment to get these, as well as other things that are not required in the exercise but would be very good to know for you as well. We have Sega. Yes, hello? Okay, so if you wish to speak up, let us know in the chat. Saida will be checking that throughout the WebEx session, and we'll unmute you so you can speak up and ask your question or want to suggest anything. So I believe this is quite clear. I just wanted to start with this for now, making sure that if there's any question before we get started, now is the time to either write it in the chat. If you already have a question maybe dedicated to the first part of the WebEx session, write it in the Q&A. If it's something related to maybe roles or the high-level process, or what you're expected to do if you have the SD08 role or the SD11 role, and we can manage to answer that as we go through. So as I was saying, Sega Keleta is also in the WebEx session with us from HQ. Thank you for being there, Sega. Anytime you wish to speak up or maybe add something to what I'm saying, please do.
Okay, Brian, I'm here with Cass as well.
Okay. Okay, Cass, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to make sure in the meantime that I log into Umoja. And we won't even cover how to log into the training environment because you guys are more than experts on this. And in the meantime, I'll also prepare my presentation here. And let me reverse that. Okay, so everybody should be seeing now the presentation on the screen. Should it be swapped? It should be swapped on yours as well. Even though I swapped it, you still see the other one? Okay, what about now? Okay, let me get this out of the way. And maybe switch the screens. Any better look there? You still can't see it? Well, you can see it, but you see the other version, right? Okay, well then I'll stop using the presentation mode. Maybe open it again, and let's do this again. Okay, it seems like it's frozen. Okay.
Hello, everybody. We have slight connection problem, so please bear with us. Brian is reconnecting to the WebEx session, and we'll start in a few minutes. Sorry about that.
It just kicked me out for a quick second there. I should be back now. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Better? Okay. Sorry guys, just WebEx just kicked me out. And it seems like I'm back and audio is fine. Yes? Okay, perfect. So, sorry about that guys. Let me again share my screen here. And share the PowerPoint. I could already tell something was going on. And now you should be able to see the presentation, hopefully. Not yet. Okay, these issues that I usually don't have, I'm having now. Okay. And here we go. Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. So mainly, here we go. Let me get this out of the screen here. And we're all good. Okay. The overall objective for today's session, and hopefully I can make up for the time lost. So we're going to validate the accuracy of the equipment master data, right? That's the objective of this session, is really to validate the accuracy of equipment master data while documenting and correcting discrepancies. In this session, we're just going to be extracting reports from the training environment. Now, this is important because the accuracy of the pertinent data, such as the physical location, equipment status, partner assignment, all this has to be validated. And any of the discrepancies found during physical verification process have to be documented and also resolved. So we're going to be acting as the SD08, which is the equipment verification planner. And we're also going to be extracting the data from the training environment. And we're going to be learning about the roles and responsibilities as this session objective WebEx shows here, and now I'm just making sure it works, is showing you right now. Okay, so we're going to extract the equipment list. We're going to not really extract the other information. It says here the list of business partners, is here on screen, but we're going to do that if we have enough time. We're definitely going to focus on the last discrepancy and the equipment list report. The asset balance report and the bin status report. Only if we have time we'll go over that for a brief period of time. Okay, and also we're going to learn how to select the proper layouts for each of these reports. Mainly the role today and the responsibility of the role today will be to, as the SD08, to extract the reports of the equipment list and also the last discrepancy equipment list report. All right, so here we go. As you guys have in this presentation, let's go over the roles and responsibilities of the equipment verification planner and the ones that are pertinent to today's WebEx session. So it's to create and maintain the equipment verification plan. This occurs offline as stated here. So basically we're skipping that step, as we'll see later on in the flow of the physical verification chart that is in the job aid in iSeek. What we're going to be doing is extracting the list, so the print equipment list, to generate the list of equipment based on the verification plan, and perform the inspection and record findings offline. So mainly we'll extract the list of equipment and the discrepancy list of equipment, and also just copy and paste this data into our Excel. And I'll teach you how to do that one step at a time. So basically what you see highlighted in yellow in this presentation is what we're going to be covering today in this session. Again, as you do have this presentation, you see that there is the physical verification process. It's much longer than the one we're going to be covering throughout this WebEx session. We're only going to stick to the high-level process, which really sums it down to 4 basic steps. As you can see, all steps would go from 1 to at least 22 steps, as we can see here in the chart, but we're only going to cover the following. Today will be number 2, which is the one also in the square box with the red box here covering it. So mainly the extract the Umoja equipment list for verification. Tomorrow we'll go into the other steps and so on. So overall, these are the steps we're covering, the ones you see here, 2, 6, 9, and 19, the ones in this chart that you can see in the job aid in iSeek. Today we're only covering step 2. Okay, we move on to our next slide, where again, we're going to go through basically what we're covering today. And if we do have time in Sega, or Cass, this comment goes out to you. The BI reports that maybe we can discuss that at the end of the session instead of at the beginning, so we can cover the basics here, that are available or that maybe our attendees could use or look at. It's something that I'll leave for the end of the session. I'm not sure if there's anything new that they can check later on, just giving you a heads up before we get started, that it's supposed to be part of the session to at least cover these BI reports that may be available for them or the ones you suggest that they could use. Okay, and as you do have these presentations, at the bottom you'll see what we're not covering today but will be part of the WebEx series. All right, so first and foremost, the SD08 Equipment Verification Planner will create an equipment verification plan analyzing quantity and type of equipment, its physical location, logistics, factors, and available staff members. This is the equipment plan that will tell us, or will give us an idea of the list that we need to extract. Saida, you wanted to mention something? No? Okay. And to do that, we're going to be using our T-code I808. This is going to be the T-code we're going to be using today to extract the equipment list report. That's our first step. The T-code to extract a list of business partners. And the last discrepancy is the same T-code as the equipment list, but you'll see how we have to play around a bit with the settings in the training environment to be able to extract the list the way we need it to be in the Excel for physical verification. And again, so these are the main T-codes that we may look at today, but again, we're sticking to I808 today mainly. Okay, if we have enough time, we'll go through the other ones and show you how you can extract those reports and use the proper layout so that it fits into the physical verification template that we'll extract from iSeek. So things to keep in mind. First and foremost, the equipment list that we're extracting. We're going to be extracting equipment that is UN owned serialized and the status not in transit or not inactive. Okay, mainly, as you'll see in the list of credentials that I provided to you, the status there, don't pay that much attention to the status on that list as it may not have been updated, but it is updated in the training environment. What's mostly important is that the equipment number is okay, the material number is fine, the asset number that you may have as well next to the material number, that's what's important there. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. So we're going to extract this equipment list, and we're going to go probably into the system now, since I'm already logged into Umoja, and go and extract this list. So that's the first thing we're going to do. If there are any questions before I go on, let me know. And let me just, this is the screen I'm sharing now. Is it frozen? Okay, which one are you seeing? Well, somehow it's not working that well today. I'm still connected. Let me just stop sharing my screen and then share it again. Okay. More issues than usual here. All right, let's share it again and let's do screen one. Okay, better now? And sorry guys, we're just having quite some issues with the sharing of the screen. Thank you, Daniel, for confirming. So it seems like he could see it. All right, so we're back. Good to know. All right, so I'm just making sure I'm adding my credentials here. Okay. All right, let me get my credentials list here. Let me just grab anyone else's because I wasn't having this problem before. Gonna have all the problems we usually don't have in 5 minutes. Okay, hold on. Let me get out of there. Push this back in here. And make sure that I'm using the correct one. Okay. And there we go. Sorry, guys. All right. Hopefully now we won't have any more issues. So first thing I was showing you, we're going to be using the T code IH08. And this T code will take us to the page that is the one we're going to be spending some time on here. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's taking a little longer than it does for me, so I'll go a bit slow to make sure. I'm feeding off of what I'm getting from Saida's screen because it seems like WebEx is acting up a bit today. Okay, so now you should all have on your screen this T code, IH08, where it displays the equipment. All right, so the first thing we should do, and also following the exercise I provided to you, and also the credentials, but also sticking to what we want to cover throughout this WebEx, is the first thing we would do is select the equipment category. Okay, in the equipment category here, I'm just going to make some annotations so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Would be this area right here. So the equipment category, okay, you can see that, that's good. First thing we'll do is make the selection, as we mentioned before in the PowerPoint, for the category M, which is UN-owned serialized. Now I see you're seeing that on screen right about now, probably, okay? So I'm selecting the M, clicking on the check mark, and here that would be the first thing we do. And scroll down to the next major point here, which is the maintenance plant. Okay? And in the maintenance plant, we're going to be selecting, for this case, the same one that's in your credentials, okay, which would be CD10 for Cisco. Okay, we can just type it in as well. CD10. And here's probably the most important part. When we scroll down all the way to the bottom where it says layout, ensure that the layout is ZZ_PV. If not, you can always click on the matchbox and select it from the list that does appear here on the screen. It should be showing up more or less right about now. So right now what we're doing is simply selecting the correct layout, the maintenance plant, which in our case is MONUSCO, and ensuring that the equipment category is M for UN-owned serialized. For the sake of your exercise, all you would have to do is go back to your credentials list here and select your equipment. So, sorry, Aina, I'm using yours here. And we, for example, select whatever equipment you would have here. You can just simply copy and then again paste it in this section here where it says equipment. You guys should all be very familiar with how this works. We click on the multiple selection arrow, and then we simply click here where it says upload from clipboard. You don't see that yet? Okay, so here it is. All right. It's quite slow today. All right. So we're copying the equipment that you have on your credentials. It's all here. So I'm only going to be pulling a list of these, this equipment here instead of everything I need for MONUSCO, okay, because it'll take less time. And then we just click on execute. Okay, so as the list loads on your screen, it's already on mine. There it is. Okay, simply whatever layout we've selected for physical verification is the one that is important to us. And now we'll see, we're going to cross-reference this layout here that we see in ECC. And again, we can scroll on the bottom to continue and see that there's more information to the right. It has to be exactly the same one as the one that we have in our template, our Excel template that we find in iSeek. So the next thing I'm going to do is show you guys where you can find this template. I'm sure you know, but just in case some of you are not sure, we will go and search for it. In the meantime, we can probably check and see if there are any questions or if anyone wants to interrupt or intervene, let me know. Now is the moment while I switch screens.
Brian,
Yes, Sega.
may I just add two things?
Absolutely.
So when we do the initial selection, instead of using the maintenance plan, it's better to use the planning plan. I know that's one thing we have to update the job aid.
Okay,
yeah.
so here I'm gonna backtrack so
Yes.
everyone can follow what you're saying at the same time on the screen.
Yes.
So okay, instead of using this maintenance plan, so it's something that will be updated.
Yes, the job aid.
Okay.
The job aid says to use the maintenance plans, but if we use the maintenance plans, it's only going to give us a list of equipment that have that field populated. And if the equipment is not installed in a functional location, it won't have the maintenance plans. So it's better to use the planning plans, and we'll update the job aid to reflect that change.
Okay.
And
so, yes.
And one
what
more
is the other thing?
For the equipment category, so we use M, which is correct, but we also have some assets that were converted with category O. So when you do the physical verification in production, it's also important to check if you have any assets that have been converted under operational category, so that we need to capture those assets for the physical verification.
Okay, so the best way to go about this would be to have them both, right? The M and O as well?
No, just
if needed?
Do the M, sorry, do the M, but separate manner the IHOA report and see if you have any assets under O, because all assets are the physical verification respective of their category.
Okay, perfect. So in this case, we'll stick to M.
Yes,
all
correct.
Right, but thank you for intervening. All right, anything else, Sega?
That's all.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to execute this report again. We have our layout here and also show you where we can get our physical verification template from iSeek. So I see you have it on screen already. Right here, as you see right under the job aid for physical verification process, we have the physical verification upload template, which if we select will take us to this new link. Sometimes it redirects you here, sometimes it takes you directly to the page. Good thing I did it before. So the physical verification will take you to a page that looks like this one. Just click on this link and it'll show you the Excel file, which is also here. I took the liberty to download it before starting the WebEx just in case we had some issues there, which looks like this, right? The physical verification upload, the instructions for the template. Make sure at the bottom here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 tabs, counting the instruction tab, which tells you step by step right here in the Excel what to do or what you're expected to do, the types of reports you can extract, where to extract them from, the T codes as well that you'll be needing, and maybe here as well, and Sega, this goes out to you. I realized, just to avoid confusions, the warehouse management and storage bin report still shows LX03, but testing it in the training environment, I was using LX02 because it's the only one that coincides with the template that's in this Excel as well. Now, as I said at the beginning, it's not going to be key. We're not going to really be going over that during the WebEx session, but just FYI. Yes, Saida?
If I may just interrupt, because we had 2 or 3 questions here. One from Ikram, who's asking, because she didn't hear you very properly, why we use planning planned instead of maintenance planned.
Okay, so I know Sega was explaining that. Sega, would you like to repeat why we're switching it? And again, we were mentioning that because the job aid still showed to use the maintenance plant and not the planning plant.
Yes.
That's why we're showing that here, but Sega, yes.
So the planning plant is what represents who owns the equipment. So we could have some equipment that are installed at different functional locations, but that are owned by a different maintenance planning plant. So we have to use planning plant because that shows who owns the equipment. and some equipment might have blank maintenance plans. So if they haven't been installed to a functional location, the maintenance plans will be blank. So if we run the IHO8 report and we put a maintenance plans in the filter, and you execute that report, you might be missing some equipment that might not be installed in a functional location. So the planning plans will give you a better list of all the items that need to be physically verified within your plans.
All right, thank you. Perfect explanation. I think that's very clear now. Okay, so continuing with the Excel. Again, one of the first things we're looking at is the tab here for instructions, which I was mentioning. It'll show you the T-codes and the steps to follow. If you scroll down, also the types of discrepancies, equipment statuses, and authorization groups. So take some time to look over this Excel if you haven't. And now going to the PV template here, the second tab on your Excel sheet. And I'll scroll all the way to the left. The layouts, and that's why it's so important to select the correct layout when we add the T-code I808, is that the layouts need to match this template, the one we see here on screen. So if we don't select the proper layout when we copy and paste, of course everything will be not in the right order and it won't match this template that we need to match here before we can do the upload after the physical verification has been done. And we have managed to annotate the discrepancies that we have found as an ST08. So the layout becomes quite critical here. So this is the main template we're going to be focusing on today, this one here, the PV template, and also the one right here, which is the 3-point previous discrepancy results, which will work also with the T-code I808, but we just have to play around a bit with the settings so that we can have this exact layout that we see here in the template itself. So mainly these two, the PV template and the previous discrepancy results. For tomorrow's session, we're going to be focusing more on how to add the discrepancies. Today, what we're going to do is just really copy and paste the data that we extract from the training environment. You'll see that you have other tabs here, like the Business Partner Report, also with its own layout. Again, not necessary for what we want to do during the sessions, but at least for your information. And the T-code that you'll need to use for that one was also in the PowerPoint presentation shared, and as well you can find it here in the instructions, Equipment Assigned BPs, IE07. Again, we have two more tabs, the Asset Net Book Value, that we may have a chance to take a look at that today, and the last but not least, the Warehouse Management and Storage Bin tabs. But again, we're focusing mainly on the PV Template tab and also the previous discrepancy results. So going back to our training environment in our list of equipment, let's say this, I'm using your credentials here, and this is the equipment that you have to extract. Now, once we have the results that we're interested in, we're going to have to extract this into an Excel and save it. So what we have to do here, and I'll go slow because I know it takes some time for it to show on your screens, is go here to List and then select Spreadsheet. We just click on the check mark once the prompt comes up and ensure that instead of pivot table here, we are selecting table and click on the green check mark. Any questions there?
There are two questions, one from Mustafa in the Q&A asking, is there any possibility to see UN plate registration number in reports using IH08 and IE05? We cannot see even with changing layout. Please advise.
Okay, sorry. They cannot see with changing layouts, please advise. Okay, UN plate registration number in reports. Okay. Well, hold on one second. Let me just minimize this Excel that I just loaded. So we'll get to that question in 1 second. Okay, so I've extracted the Excel with the list, and again, the layout matches exactly the PV template we have before. But to answer your question, there are ways to, and I think I'll have to extract it again if I go. Remember, if you have been to the reporting WebEx sessions or any of the reporting workshops, there are ways that you can play around with the display or what has come out with the display here. So we're not seeing that, we're not seeing the license plate now because it's not the one that is required for this WebEx session, especially now when we want to populate the PV template as we're seeing. But again, there's an option to see more that is not in the list. If you click here, let me just show you this. And if by any chance you can't do this, and say you can't see the license plate from this T code, let me know. But anyway, just for your information, who was asking the question? Mustafa. You have more options to select from if you wish to see more information related to the equipment. Okay, so right now we're not looking at that because it's not what's required for the physical verification high-level process. But if you wish to view other information when you pull a report, just make sure you click here on this icon that shows your current, and that will display more options that you can always drag to your left and show as well. Okay, let me go back to the Excel that we had here, and I believe it did not download because I closed it. And let me just pull it again. Okay, here we go. So what we can do once we have the Excel and we take that from the training environment is we could actually just save it the way it is and then work with it offline, which would probably be the best option. So what I would do here is, okay, it's extremely slow. All right, here you go. All right, so let me go back 1 second. And now when it finally comes up, it comes up really fast. Okay, so our Excel is there. Now it's on your screen as well. And what I was saying is that the best thing you can do is save this first so you can work with the Excel offline. Okay, so all we have to do is click on the Save As. And once this screen pops up, let me make sure it's on your screen as well. Here you go. What's important here is to select your desktop and permit all access. You should have a window that should pop up as well on your screen when you're doing this. That tells you to permit all access, which is letting Citrix access, let's say, your system or your computer. Okay, here we go. So in my case, I'm just going to save it in this one here, Network Drive H, just because it's easier for me to reach later on. But again, you would have to access your local disk here and select user and your own name. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with doing this. If not, let me know and I can show you the process. But again, just to go through with this, I select H here and you would save the document. In this case, I saved it before with my own equipment list, which is here as it shows on your screen. It should be there now. So I'm not going to save it again. Yeah, and this is the one I'll be using later on so I can work offline and populate my template. Okay, so that's the first thing we'll do to extract our list of equipment for your exercise and also acting as an ST08. Now, as Sega was mentioning before, there are a couple of changes from what was stated in the job aid. She mentioned it. Hopefully it's clear for all of you now. And now what I'm going to do is just go back and do the same process, but now I'm going to extract a list of discrepancies. Okay, so whatever discrepancies these pieces of equipment had in the past or the last time the physical verification process was done should still be there, right? But of course we cannot see them if we pull the report the way I just did now. Okay, the first thing we'll have to do is here in this classification section where it says class type and class, we're going to have to add some important information here, and it's also in your exercise. If you realize, and I'm going to pull the exercise once again and wait until it's on your screen. I think it's there now. Yes. Okay, so the first part of the exercise was this one, which is the extract equipment list. Only equipment assigned to you. Hopefully that's clear. And again, I'm sorry for all the issues we've had with the WebEx at the beginning, and I may be going too fast now just for the sake of time, so let me know and I can cover some of the steps that I may have gone through too fast. But again, for the sake of the exercise, these are the fields that we populated in the training environment. Equipment category M for UN owned serialized equipment. We added the maintenance plant, and now, like Sega was mentioning, how we're going to be doing it in production is the planning plant. And the layout, which is very important, select the one for physical verification. So we did all this and extracted our list of equipment. In this case, only the one assigned to you in the exercise. Then for the second part, we're going to extract the list of last discrepancies. Okay, so here I wrote extract list of equipment for CD10, then filter equipment assigned to you. And I said that initially because sometimes when you try to play around with the settings, and we'll see later, the layout changes a bit. So I mentioned that it should be better to first pull all the equipment and then just filter by yours. But in this case, we're going to go directly by the equipment assigned to you, because I'm sure it could work. So the only difference will be right here, the class that we're going to add and the class type. Okay, everything else will remain the same as we did for the first part of the exercise. So let me go back to the T code here, I808, and again, so here we have the class type. We'll select the matchbox and select 002 equipment class. Here we go, and then for class, we're going to select. Again, this screen may pop up here. Just click on the check mark and make sure that you select the one that's on the exercise, which is this one, physical verification, ZZPV. Click on the check mark and we're good to go. Again, the equipment that I have here is the one that is in your exercise. As you see, the multiple selection is in green, which means that you have more than one piece of equipment there. And I know that you can see it on your screen too. It seems it's working a bit faster now. Okay, we have the equipment category here. We have our maintenance plant. And again, we have our layout at the bottom, CCPV. Okay, so let me scroll up, click on execute, and there's my list of equipment. Now, if you take a look and you scroll to the right, it looks exactly the same as the one we just extracted before. Right, the layout is exactly the same as before. So where we have to go now is here to settings. Okay. And click here on show hide classification. Okay, it's already there. As you see, the scroll has grown here to the right. So let's just move our window here to the right and see that now we have more fields that we didn't have before I clicked on the settings, right? We have here the verification date, verified by, and the discrepancy type. So this is the last discrepancy type for the equipment list that we had in this case. Since I'm the one who played around with this for you guys, for the WebEx session, I wrote no discrepancy found for each and all of the equipments. Right, so I was a terrible SD08 when I did the last physical verification check, and I wrote no discrepancy found for all of them. So we're going to extract this list as well. But before I do that, say that you were going to say something.
Just to make sure that Eve's question has been answered, he's asking if he can extract the equipment by location or users.
If I can extract the equipment by location or users.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm understanding correctly, this is just the layout that he's talking about. Okay, because you can definitely extract this list of equipment the way you wish to extract it. You can always play around with the layout that's here. What I'm doing is simply extracting it the way it should be for the physical verification template, right? So if you're going to upload this information into the template, you should have the layout that matches the physical verification template Excel that we've extracted. If you're wishing just to extract reports and with your own layouts, of course you can. Yes, it's definitely, like, for example, if I'm talking about user status, if I'm understanding correctly, I mean, just saying, in this case, I'm just following the steps to fill in the actual physical verification template, Excel. There's other ways to extract these reports, of course, right? You can always go back, and I can do that once I extract this list. We can go back. I'm just going to finish what I'm doing now, and then maybe I can go back and show you. But yes, if you have been to any of the reporting workshops or also on our YouTube channel, there's some videos there recorded where we explain how to extract reports differently on the T-codes. Okay, but I'm just going to stick to what I was doing here for the physical verification template. But thanks, Saida, for bringing that up. And now that I have remember, let me just do this really quick. On the settings, right, what I clicked on was show and hide classification. If I click here, right, now I won't see any of the last discrepancies. And if I click on it again, we'll see a new layout, right, where it shows discrepancy type, verified by, and verification date. 3 fields that are quite important for the physical verification template we'll see later. Okay, so this works the same way. We want to extract this list. We go to List. We'll go to Spreadsheet. And I see you guys are seeing in the screen the changes almost simultaneously when before it was taking a good minute. Okay, so there you go. So this process is the same to extract and also to save the report that we're extracting from I-808. Sometimes it could take some time. Sometimes it's really quick. I also see you're seeing that on your screen as well. Very good. And now, as we see our Excel, we have now the verification date, verified by, and discrepancy type, which is the one that we're looking to have. And as you can see a little more to the right, we have other columns that we'll dig into tomorrow mainly because they're quite important for the physical verification template that we're going to be looking at. The change in user, change location, change in status. So all these fields are quite important and they'll be critical. Okay, but now what we do is the same thing we did before. We can save this Excel sheet again. It's the process as we did before. I'll save it on my H drive here, which is already here with the discrepancies. You guys can save it on your local disk or wherever suits you best. Okay, since it's already saved on mine, I'm just going to skip that part and close this Excel. All right, so that was mainly how to extract first the list of the equipment that we're physically verifying, and then the list of discrepancies that were, let's say, added in the past for these pieces of equipment. And why are we extracting these? Because for the physical verification Excel that we've downloaded from iSeek, we need to add both the list of equipment that now we're verifying with the discrepancies and also the one that we had in the past with the discrepancy results. Okay, so mainly these 2 tabs that I'm clicking on now in the Excel. Now I see somebody wrote something in the chat. I'm not sure if it's a question. And before I move on to maybe copying and pasting the information into this Excel, any other question?
So yes, we do have a question from Bushra. Can we see the list of all equipment checked and the ones pending PV physical verification in the same functional location?
Okay. So here on our list here, instead of, if I'm understanding correctly, here we just had a selection of equipment. So we can definitely pull a report on the equipment, on all the equipment that we have. Let's say before we pull this list, this report, right? There's a plan that has to be created by the equipment verification planner. And based on that plan is where we're extracting this list of equipment. So the decision should be made prior to extracting the list. But if the question, and I'm understanding correctly, is to extract a list of equipment by functional location, okay, is the question. So yeah, basically you can, if you see all the fields that are here in the T code, the ones that I'm showing you now scrolling down, and hopefully you can see this at the same time as me, you can add all the information and filter before you execute the report. If not, you can always execute a report like I'm going to do right now. Let's say I'm going to take out this class, and I'm going to also take out, hold on. Let me see here, stop transaction. There you go, let's go back in. Okay, so let's say I'm going to stick to my equipment category M, and I'm also, the layout, I'm going to stick to the same layout. I'm using the same maintenance plan CD10. You can always just pull the entire list of equipment. Hopefully I'm understanding what the question is. So you can always pull the entire list of equipment and then filter later on when you have the list, right? If you want to do it prior to that, you can always see any of these fields and that you're interested in filtering prior to executing your report will also give you a different result in the type of equipment that you're pulling. So if you wish to filter by functional location, you can do that as well. If you know the functional location, you can always add it prior to executing the report. And then, of course, your report will change. See here where it says maintenance data, this section here at the bottom, this functional location field. If we add our functional location or functional locations prior to executing our report, sure, the report will be different, and the equipment list that we'll have will be based on that filter we did initially. So I'm thinking this is what the question is about, right? So these questions are more related to what we can do in terms of pulling reports and less on the actual physical verification process itself. Still valid questions, it's fine. I just want to make sure that I'm really covering the question and providing the answer you want.
And I'm following a bit of clarification, asking what is the scope of the physical verification? Only or M+4 equipment category?
Okay, so as Sega was explaining before, the scope for this WebEx series, right, is going to be only focusing on the M, right, the equipment owned. The equipment, here, for example, let me just show it so it's easier to see in the screen here. See, the equipment category M, and that's the scope of this WebEx session, is going to focus on UN-owned serialized. All right, Sega jumped in before to let us know that eventually you could also pull a report on those that are UN operations here, the O. But we're not going to be covering that during this WebEx session because it wasn't there before we planned the course, but Sega was nice enough to intervene and let us know that you can also pull the report, not only by UN-owned serialized, but also by UN operations. But that's not the scope of this WebEx session.
Brian, may I add?
Series. Yes, Sega.
So just to add to that, so normally when we do the physical verification, it would be only looking at the equipment category M. However, we have some assets that were converted from Galileo into Umoja with a category O. So those will need to be physically verified, even though they don't have equipment category M, because they're fixed assets. They do require physical verification. So when you start extracting your physical verification list, follow the instructions that Brian provided. However, just do a second check to see if you have any assets that are under category O. And then if you do, run another report to include those. Is that clear? Are you alone? Yeah. Sorry, we have another.
Thanks. Yeah, Sega. And maybe we can, here, let me just check and see. Somebody must be unmuted. It was maybe from her side, probably? Okay.
Yeah, it's from my side. We're in a boardroom
okay.
And somebody just joined the VTC.
I see. Okay. just making sure. Okay.
Okay.
All
so
right,
was that clear?
I believe it was very clear. Let's see if it was Anna, right? You said in the chat. Anna, please just let us know. I think Sega was quite clear on that explanation.
Hello, Walter.
So, the scope of this WebEx session, right, we're not going to be going through that, but as Sega is explaining, yeah, in production, and of course, based on what she was explaining with the transfer, right, from Galileo to Moja, some of the assets, correct, Sega, may show under O, and those are the ones that need the physical verification.
That's perfect. That's correct, Brian.
Okay. Thank you, Sega, for intervening and explaining that again. I think it's very clear. All right. Any other question maybe that was pending?
One from Richard, who's asking if he can narrow the selection, not selecting, for example, entire Molusco, but just Entebbe. How can he do that without typing all the functional locations?
Okay, so for let's say, and of course this is going into the planning plant, right? The selection of the planning plant. In this case, what we did was select CD10 for the maintenance plant, right? Let's say, for example, if you click on the matchbox, this will give you a long list of options, right? So I'm just selecting MONUSCO for the sake of this WebEx series because the equipment that we had in the training environment worked with that. But as you can see, you can make a selection of other, let's say, of other missions, of other maintenance plants, of other plants, of other planning plants. It doesn't have to be MONUSCO itself. So you could look for Entebbe and just pull the ones for Entebbe. And then once you have the ones from Entebbe, you could filter further and maybe just go by, I don't know, storage location or go by functional location, so you don't have to go one by one. But again, in this case, it's because the one I selected was MONUSCO. Okay, there's a strange beep. I don't know if I'm the only one who hears it. No beeps on your side? Okay, fine. Just the strangest things are happening in today's session. Okay, nevertheless, here you go. For example, see here, I think it shows on your screen, right? Because now it was working quite better than when we first started. If I select here RSCE and Entebbe, I would only be pulling the equipment for that and not the one for MONUSCO. So you wouldn't have to do it later on, storage functional location by functional location. You could always start filtering your search here earlier before you get started. Okay, so I think that may clarify what the question was. So again, remember, you can always start, and I always recommend to start with a larger search and then filter further. But if you're quite sure of what you want to search for initially, then the best option would be to add your maintenance plant here, your work center here, maybe even the equipment that you're looking for, the functional location right from the get-go before you even execute your report, so that you have the results that you're looking for right from the get-go. And also, being that maybe the bandwidth in your mission is much worse than the one we have here, when you execute a report for all the equipment in your plant, it may take a long time and even time out. So the narrower your search, the better results and the faster results you'll get. Okay, so maybe before I take a look at the other question that there may be, right, we saved the Excels that we extracted, right, the list of equipments that we extracted into Excels. And now what you would want to do is, of course, copy and paste that data into the actual physical verification template that we downloaded. So all this would occur offline. We wouldn't have to do it in the training environment. So as your exercise tells you to do, and as you would do really in real life, once you have extracted these reports, now it's just time to really just copy and paste. Okay, so as I saved these before, I could always go and search for these Excels. So here, let me do this on screen. So in our case, and I think you can see that as well on your screen, I'm selecting the H file here where I know I had my file saved, and all I would do is, of course, equipment list, double click on this Excel, select the equipment, and just simply paste it on the other physical verification template. So you see here, again, not with the headers because those are unnecessary as they are already on our other template, as you see here behind me. All we need here is the data below. So all we would do is just select here at the bottom, select all the information up to storage location, and we'd simply copy and paste that in the other. Let me make sure it's happening. Okay, now I know it's selected. And then again here, we would just paste it. Okay, so our information would just show on the list. And if we scroll to the right, see everything has been copied and pasted here. Now, if you'll see that you have no previous physical verification result, discrepancy type, verification date, this is empty here, business partner. There are a lot of fields that you'll see are empty, which will begin to populate with the information that we provide in other tabs. So in this first tab, physical verification, all we're adding is the data from the list that we extracted initially. And now from the previous discrepancy result tab, where we have this new layout, we're going to be pasting the information from the list of discrepancies. So now I'm going to close this Excel sheet here, go back to my folder, and open the one that says discrepancies. And this is the one where it's going to show here. Let's see if it opens. Okay, perfect. So see, it looks the same, but now what we do have in this list is our actual verification date, who verified it, and the discrepancies that these equipments had in the past. We do the same process. We simply just copy and paste. Again, remember, select the contents below the headers. We don't need the headers. And under the previous discrepancy result tab, all we do is just paste the information and make sure, again, you can always double check that the information we've pasted is actually the one that relates to the information here at the top. Okay, and now we should have the information we need. So let's check the questions in the meantime. Are there any? Okay. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just reading them. So yeah, Anna Stefanova.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Anna. More focus on stock storage location, please. As the functional location, we can use the first 6 digits for bigger areas, but not the whole region.
Okay, so if I'm understanding the question, it's performing the search by storage location and not the functional location?
Okay. Okay, no worries. So there was a private conversation, and that's why I was like...
All right.
Okay, Anna, no worries.
No problem.
That was not the question. Okay.
All right, so any other? No? If not, I'll just go back to the PowerPoint that I shared with the students to make sure that everyone, it's okay, no problem. We got into a private conversation there in the WebEx to make sure that we've covered everything that I wanted to cover today, at least basically, and if there are any questions, we can go over some of the steps. But before I continue, Sega, is there anything you'd like to add now that we've extracted both the list of equipment and the one with the last discrepancy? Those are the main ones I wanted to focus on. If there's nothing, maybe I can go into something else.
Brian, just one thing I'd like to add. And this,
yes.
And this was not included in the job aid, but we will be updating the job aid shortly. But when we do the initial selection for the list of equipment for physical verification, we also need to exclude equipments that are in transit and equipments that are acquired after the start of the fiscal year. So it's restricting the filter for 2 more other fields. So it's the same process, but when we do the initial IHOA extraction, we'll be adding 2 more filters.
Okay, so the one that, like what I have on screen right now, right?
Yes.
The one that
yes.
is not in transit, that one's okay?
That one's okay,
right?
yeah.
No, I think, yeah, that was probably not in the job aid, or at least it's not maybe clear in the job aid.
Yeah,
yes, the yeah,
missing
okay.
from the job aid, and also the inactive.
All right, perfect. And also the inactive. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
And that's all for now.
All right, Sega, thank you. Okay, so let me just go through the PowerPoint and whatever is missing. Then I'll probably go back to you guys, Sega and Cass, to see if about the reports, right? The BI reports, and maybe those you maybe want to recommend or give us an update on the status of some of them that our attendees could use. Mainly what I wanted to cover today has been covered, and if there's definitely some extra time to go over how to extract the list of business partners, asset balance report, and the warehouse stock and bin status report. But since that wasn't crucial for today's session, and it's not crucial either to perform the exercise throughout the WebEx session, because if you want to update the equipment or you want to upload the physical verification template into Umoja, you really don't need the other tabs to be populated, right? It won't make a critical difference. And this exercise, I'm mainly focusing on the equipment list report and the last discrepancy report. Okay, just as a review, remember that Sega also made the addition that it's probably not in the job aid, but it's mentioned in the PowerPoint that when we're filtering the equipment records, we're doing so by UN-owned serialized, not in transit, and not inactive. Okay, and then the last discrepancy report that we pulled as well. Again, here we have the 4 discrepancies, but there are really 5, as you'll see, which is the 00, which says no discrepancy. So eventually I did not add that one here in the PowerPoint, but you do have it here. 01 for not found yet, 02 for user location status, 03 for serial number barcode authorization group, and then 04 that will combine 02 and 03. Right, and we'll get into these tomorrow a little more and understanding what they mean and when we select them. But today we're just, all we wanted to do was just extract the reports, show you guys how to do that and how to manage the layouts. Also get a little more familiar with the physical verification Excel that is here. Okay, and the information of how to copy and paste it, and also follow the instructions in the first tab. Okay, so those main things are there. Now let me just go back to the PowerPoint and mention a couple of things, right, on the list of business partners. So we're adding that here to the PowerPoint to determine mapping between equipment and business partner assignment. I think really the list of business partners speaks for itself, right? So we're pulling this report mainly to do that, right? Link the equipment and the business partner assignment. The asset balance report to determine the net book value of the asset records, and also impairment review, right, to make sure which ones are above the threshold and are damaged. So we're not going to go through that today. Maybe we can take a look at it tomorrow, but again, why we would be pulling this report and why it shows here in the tab in the PV Excel here, which would be this one here, the asset net book value. The information is mainly to determine the value of the asset records, also performed for mainly the impairment review, right? So usually when you're doing the physical verification, the impairment review are kind of like go hand by hand or in parallel. So we would be pulling this report to make sure or to see which assets we have are above the threshold and are also damaged. And then again, last but not least, the warehouse stock and bin status report, where we will determine the link between the material and the storage bin. Okay, I'm thinking, or I'm quite sure that you're all familiar with the T codes here. If not, if you go to the last slide on this PowerPoint, you have the T codes for each one of these. And also you'll see that we have the links to the job aid for physical verification and also the link to the Excel, right, the physical verification template. So you can access them directly from this PowerPoint here. Okay, so before I continue, I'll just go back to you, Sega and Cass. I added this slide to the PowerPoint just in case you guys wanted to go over the reports that may be available or those that you recommend our attendees to take a look at.
Brian, just
yes.
On part B, list of business partners.
Yes.
So when we went live last year in September, we didn't have the business partner details in IHO8. So for that reason, we had to go to a different report to pull the business partner details. Recently, we added the business partner and the business partner name into IHO8, So we will be updating the templates so that we don't have to run the report B, and we can just include those the business partner name and business partner type into the IHOA report. So there will be a new template being published and an updated job aid that will be a little bit easier when preparing the template, because we'll be running IHOA to also get the list of BP partners instead of running a separate report.
Okay, well that's good news. Less work, less reports to pull.
Yes.
Okay. All right, perfect.
So with respect to the reports, we have 4 in the pipeline that are sort of almost at the final step for publishing. We were testing them, but we did note some discrepancies in the logic. And so it's sort of a back and forth where we have to identify the issue and correct and before it can be published. So we're still sticking with our timeline that by the end of the year, they should be up and running. And these reports relate to the, they address our KPIs, but the reports will allow you to look at your physical verification of activity for P&E, for non-fixed assets, and we're also going to be looking at the reconciliation of not found yet and not located in the previous cycle. So that's 1, 3, 5, and 7.
1, 3, 5, and 7. Okay.
1, 3, 5, and 7. So they're in the pipeline.
All right, so in the pipeline, but then so our attendees would not be able to go in and check these reports, or any other report that you would recommend or that would be useful for them.
No, because the published ones. Let me take a look at what's published, and unfortunately, even the published ones we test. One thing to consider is that the ones marked FG5, that relates to the Galileo decommissioning project. They were the first reports to be built. They were tested in pre-production, and basically the test was limited to whether or not they work. Do they refresh? But there was no live data. How can there be any real data until we finish the project? So we are actually even going back and looking at those reports and seeing how they correlate based on the process that SCPMU has developed as part of the quarterly performance management framework, where we base just about everything on ECC and log tables and so on. So when I look at the published ones, I mentioned 1 and 3, physical accountability of P&E, and NEP below threshold, but we know that there are issues with those, so I can't recommend that they be used. And then the other published one is expendable property, but that's not even in scope of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So we just have to wait.
Okay. Well, I think then at least the slide that I added here, the image that I'm sharing now in the WebEx is correct then. Everything that says here published yes or no is still accurate.
Yes, we haven't published anything since. We've basically been moving towards that direction.
All right. And then I guess no dates, right? Yet you don't dare to say any dates yet when it would be ready.
The plan calls for November and December.
Uh-huh.
But our issue is that that's usually when the reports hit production, meaning that November, December is when we're looking at live data. And based on our experiences with the reports so far, they always have issues. And that means a reversal into pre-production. And so I can only say that I hope that they're ready for December.
Okay, Cass, thank you. Anything else to add, Cass or Sega?
Not from me.
Nothing from me, Brian.
All right, thank you very much. So let's see if we have some other questions now. We still have another 10 minutes. If not, I have a nice 5 questions to answer to see if we've been paying attention throughout the WebEx session. But Saida?
2 points, maybe they have already been answered, but Eve is asking if it is mandatory to code sheet for discrepancy. And Kazem is asking if there is any chance to extract the list of the assets verified in the current cycle directly from Umoja.
Okay, so I'll leave maybe the second question maybe to Sega, but for the first one, is it necessary to download the old discrepancy list? Okay, so mainly if we're looking at the Excel, and let me just pull that once again, right? The information that we're extracting from one or the other, right? So in this case, necessary, really just this, it's more of information for you, right? When you upload it to Umoja, if you do not add the last discrepancy type, right, or you don't add this information at least here in the PV template side here.
Brian, we don't see. We
Yes.
don't see template.
You don't what? Sorry.
We don't see. Are you showing the Excel template?
Yes. So we're back again to the delay between one and the other. Yes. Okay. Now, all right. There you go. Okay. So we're back to having issues with that. So again, Sega, since you're on there, it really necessary to download or copy and paste the data from the discrepancy? Is that necessary? I would say at least yes for the discrepancy list and also the list of equipment. So like that, when you pull your final list, you know if there were already discrepancies in the past. Or at least this list will show you, right, if there are any discrepancies. So let's say I'm in the SD11, right, and I have to make some changes. I wouldn't be able to know, right, unless I have this previous list. Now, the other ones may not be necessary to upload, but at least those 2 tabs, PV template tab, right, tab number 2 with the list of equipment and the one with the previous discrepancy, those 2, I would say, are the only necessary ones, if I can say that.
Yes, that's exactly right.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Sega. And the second question, sorry, Sega, can you refresh my memory on that one? From Kazim, right? It was?
Yes.
Indeed. Is there any chance to extract the list of the asset verified in the current cycle directly from Umoja?
The asset verified from the current cycle in Umoja. Okay. And in this case, we're not talking about the assets that we're going to add in the asset net book value, I suppose, Kazim.
So I can take that one, Brian.
Sure, Sega, if you could.
Yes. So you have to run the IHO8 report, and so it's the second demo that Brian did to see the list of equipment that have been physically verified. And one of the fields in the classification is a verification date, which you see on the screen right now, and that will tell you when the physical verification was recorded in the system. So if you want to only get a list of the assets that were verified in the current cycle, then you can filter by the verification date.
Okay, so basically IH08 as I'm doing now, and then simply just filter by verification date.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so I think that answers Kazim's question. There were no other ones? Okay, I think everything else is okay. At least we have enough information to go through the exercise. We went through the basics. Remember, this is just a high-level process. There are more steps to this that we haven't covered, mainly because of time constraints. But what is necessary has definitely been covered. So maybe any last-minute questions. And while we check for those questions, what I'm going to do is start preparing the questions that I have here for the polling. So nothing else, right, Saida? I can open the poll. All right. So I would appreciate it if those of you who are connected to the session It'll take you maybe 3-4 minutes to answer these questions. So I'm going to open the poll now. So take a look at your screens. You should probably have to accept the poll. If not, you can just directly go and answer them. This will definitely be important for us to understand.
You guys want to answer this? The comment there.
Sorry, I thought Sega was going to say something. Okay, so I see people are already answering that in progress. We have at least 21 attendees. Okay. Okay, so at least 60 attendees have done the polling already. I hope the questions reflect the knowledge shared during the session. I think so. Okay. Yeah, I think the polling is just available or visible, no? But those that are connected to the WebEx itself. Well, okay, so don't worry, whoever's connected on mobile device, and of course I'm talking about those who have received the invite to the WebEx, right, and are also on our mailing list, we're going to compile these questions and the correct answers and share them as well tomorrow. So you'll always have the information, whatever Q&A, right, whatever questions were asked that Sega and Cast answered to, or that I answered to, will also be filled. The polling will also be compiled and will be sent. So you guys will have all this information in your inbox. Again, if you're on our mailing list, right? If by any chance you've joined the WebEx session and then you're not in our mailing list, then sorry, you won't be receiving that email. Okay, so almost everyone's done. And we still have 1 minute, 47 seconds. Okay, everyone, just another 15 seconds to go. Thank you for joining us during today's session. I hope it was useful. And again, sorry for all the issues we had at the beginning. I know it was a good 15 minutes of some technical issues there, but hopefully we've answered your questions. So the polling is done. So we'll retrieve the polling here, and let me show you guys the correct answers once I get this information. Thank you, Saida, for staying on top of the Q&A. Thank you guys for writing your questions in the Q&A as well. I'm going to show you guys the correct answers for those of you who are who have done the poll and are connected to the WebEx session. But again, remember, we'll compile this and send this to you in an email as well. Okay, so really there's 2 more minutes. If there's any last minute question, I think Sega may have been disconnected. Nevertheless, if there are any questions on what to expect from the exercise, tomorrow's session, something I may have gone through too quickly, let me know. If we can answer that in the next 2-3 minutes, fine. If not, we'll leave that for tomorrow. Okay, no questions then. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Okay, at least the recording did work, so that's a good thing. We'll be able to send the recording to the attendees. Okay. Okay, so I see in the chat, all right, one question there. I do not have the password to complete the training exercise. Mine is 2167. Okay, so the password is the same for everyone. Okay, I'm also going to write it in the chat, right? So it's capital U, Moja198. All right, but again, so you use your username, whether it's 2167, 2181, 2180, whichever one it is, and the password Umoja198. But again, remember your client, right, or the client selected has to be 520. Okay? Make sure that when you're logging into the training environment, you're putting client 520, adding your username and the password, which is the same for everyone. Then you should have no problem. Right, at least that's what I did when I logged in, and I'm going to do that again right here before I close the session, right? So once you go into the training system, Umoja Training ECC, here you go. The client here should be 520. The user, and see in this case I'm even using 2195, and your password Umoja198, and you should have no issue logging in. So that is fine. Now, yes, thank you, Saida. I wasn't sharing my screen anymore, but yes, it should be fine. Okay, thank you, Mohammed. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for joining, and hopefully tomorrow we'll have less technical issues than we had today, and I hope you guys have a good afternoon.